Hey guys, it's Kristen here as usual for episode 39 of Is This Podcast Paleo? Everett is traveling through Europe somewhere this week. I think he is in Portugal. I did see he got detained by security with a suitcase full of like paleo snacks. So I'm sure he'll have something to share with us when he gets back. But before we get started, I do have a guest today. Just a really quick update. Over on the blog, I posted that watermelon ginger margarita on Friday. If you guys are looking for a cocktail, I had it at the engagement party this past weekend, and it went crazy fast. And we had to send my uncle out to get more watermelon and tequila halfway through to make more. So go check that out. And then there's still, when this releases on the 28th, there are still a couple more days to jump into our next group of Primal Precision, that little small group nutrition program that I run. This is our third round, so you guys can head over to the Girl with the Butter and check that out if you still want to jump in on it. So that's all that. So now getting into our guest today, I lost track of time and forgot that I still need to record a podcast this week, but lucky for myself and I guess for you guys listening, I have in very close proximity somebody who is actually quite applicable to the show. So our guest for today is Rob Esposito. He is the owner of Absolute Strength Gym, which is the group that owns Long Branch CrossFit and CrossFit 732 over here in Jersey. He's level 2 CrossFit, level 2 USAW Olympic lifting, and he coached a 48K lifter this year in Salt Lake City at Nationals. She ended up coming in 4th. A major thing that he focuses on is mindset and, perfecting your mental game and accountability and, the more mind game side of things. So, so that's it. So Rob, hello.
Hello, how you doing?
Fine.
Great.
So why don't you, that's the little introduction that I gave you, but why don't you kind of, I guess, tell everybody your cliff notes of, getting into fitness and eventually CrossFit, and then now how you kind of approach, I think the way that you approach training with the 4 pillars is kind of cool, like your training philosophy. So a little bit of background and then we'll just get into that.
I was always active as a kid growing up, play sports, all that good stuff, and graduated high school, started eating like shit, drinking, having a good time, partying, working, and kind of got overweight and got out of shape, and one day kind of realized that, okay, I got to change the course of where my life's going. Went to college, got back in shape, and saw a job opening as a personal trainer, and I have the mentality of seeing something that is kind of looked at by most people as, oh, I couldn't do that, whereas I look at anything and know that I can build myself up to be able to do it. So of course I looked at that job opening like, oh, I worked out in high school, I can do that, right? So went and got a job as a trainer at a regular Globo gym and started training people as clients, and kind of fell in love with that, and found CrossFit years later. Once we had a boot camp in the park, and so we were always using those high intensity type workouts anyways, and CrossFit kind of fit that mold, and we got fired from Globo Gym and decided to open a studio up and started doing personal training and boot camps at the studio that we had, and then we affiliated with CrossFit in 2010, and we haven't looked back since.
So we did get but one of the things that I wanted to ask you, and actually I don't think I've ever even asked you, so the first affiliate opened in 2010, and then Long Branch, the most recent affiliate, opened 2 years ago?
Yeah, a little over 2 years ago.
So what's one of the biggest things that you see in terms of what it was like opening a gym 6 years ago, and then what it's like now opening up an affiliate?
Well, the one thing that the main reason why we decided to affiliate in the first place was to open our community up that we had already built, which was a small community, to the larger CrossFit community, which it's kind of like there's tons of things that you can kind of equate to. It's kind of like driving a Jeep, right? You drive down the road with a Jeep and you get the wave because somebody else has a Jeep, or same thing for a motorcycle. Like you're kind of a part of a larger community. And I wanted our community, and we wanted our community to, be open to that with CrossFit. And CrossFit was really nice about CrossFit was now that people knew that we were CrossFit, they knew what they were getting into. Whereas before we'd have people come in for workouts and trials or whatever, and they didn't realize how challenging the training was. So CrossFit kind of pre-qualified the people that were coming in brand new. So the difference between now and then was CrossFit was still a little underground. It wasn't as popular. So the people who came in hearing about CrossFit already knew enough about CrossFit to know what they were getting into. Whereas now CrossFit's so mainstream, so popular, everybody's heard of it, but no one really knows what it is. So our biggest problem now with with new people is kind of expressing to them what CrossFit is and what it's all about, instead of just, okay, you know what you're getting into, try a workout out and sign up. Whereas it was a lot easier back then with being a new affiliate. Whereas now you actually have to work a little more as far as educating new people.
Do you think a lot of affiliates complain about oversaturation, and that HQ should say that you only have a certain geographic area that X amount of gyms can be in? Do you think that's an actual problem, or?
I think that's the biggest cop out ever. I think any gym that says that is just not doing it right enough, and they should, instead of blaming someone else and blaming some other affiliate, they should get their shit together and do a better job at either marketing or dealing with their clients or keeping the clients that they have, whatever it may be. I think it's easy to point the finger around about all the affiliates, but there's tons of affiliates that are doing really well, and there's tons of people who are out of shape and need CrossFit, and there's a lot more of them than there are affiliates.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think like if you look at something like Starbucks, and the joke, like Lewis Black has a joke where he was in Seattle and he found the end of the world because he walked out of a Starbucks and looked up and there was another Starbucks.
Totally.
Starbucks fucking everywhere.
That's 100%.
Millions of people drinking coffee, and the Starbucks across the street isn't bitching that there's a Starbucks around the corner, or Dunkin' Donuts or any other coffee.
Dunkin' Donuts is a much better example out here. I mean, think about it. 5 years ago, there's they're few and far between. Now they're right down the street from each other, and they're still doing good enough to keep opening up. At the gym up in South Amboy, there's probably 5 Dunkin' Donuts in a 3-mile radius. There's enough out there. If the product's good enough, you can saturate the market enough. And let's be honest, CrossFit's a great product. And let's be honest, there's tons of people who need to get in shape and need help with that. A lot more so than there's gyms in the area.
Yeah, I think a lot of gyms. I don't know if maybe it's turning around everywhere, if it's just in the communities that I see. But I think that a lot of times gyms get caught up in like thinking we need all of the fire breathers, we need athletes, we need people who are going to go kill it at local competitions, and they forget about, or like they're looking at the members of other gyms and they're like, well, how many, if I'm not pulling from their members, who am I going to pull from? And it's like there are soccer moms and dads who used to play football, and tons of people who are there that can do CrossFit. Like we constantly are preaching that CrossFit's for everybody, but then it seems like affiliates get stuck in this pigeonhole of like who they're looking for.
Well, that's a very short-sighted affiliate. I mean, Michael Boyle is a very very prestigious, I guess, for lack of better words, a strength coach in the strength coaching community. And obviously, if there's CrossFitters listening to this, they may have heard of him. If they haven't, they should look up some of his stuff because he's been in the game for a long time. He recently went back and started training people who weren't athletes and kind of forgot how hard it was to train people that don't have a base. Where, yeah, we all want fire breathers. They're fucking easy. It's easy to train an athlete. So any one of these gyms that has these these great athletes, and there's a gym full of great athletes, and they're all young people. It's great. We all want them, but when you can have somebody who's 60 years old and have them moving better, that's going to be more of your bread and butter as far as making, any kind of money anyways, because there's a lot more people out there like that. There's a lot bigger population that needs help.
Yeah. Just because this recently happened, just shifting gears a little bit, and we did get a question about it. Somebody wanted to know thoughts on, because the games was this past weekend, someone wanted to know thoughts on the games winners. And when we were watching it on Sunday, you said something interesting about Matt Fraser winning, that you weren't sure if he was going to be able to come back and repeat. So I think everybody's kind of like, oh, Matt Fraser's the new Rich Froning a little bit. So why do you say that?
Well, you see it a lot in sports. Once people start to believe their own hype is when the world humbles them, right? You look at Conor McGregor. What happened to him? He got his ass kicked. You know what I mean? Like, because he started to believe his own hype. You look at George St. Pierre, and that's just MMA. Look at Mike Tyson. There's all throughout history, there's these athletes that were touted to be the next best thing, and then because they started to believe their own hype, and became bigger than life, essentially, life comes back and humbles them. And I think that Matt Fraser obviously is a monster. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from him, but like a true champion, is he going to come back and continue to push the envelope? And I think that's a hard thing to do when you blown the competition away by so much. And I think he had a lot of anger, a lot of disappointment that led him to train that hard leading up to this past year's games, being second place twice. I think this next year we're going to see either the next Rich Froning because he really likes to win, or just he proved himself and he's content with that and whatever. I think only time will tell.
Yeah. Last week we picked who our picks were, and I picked Ben Smith. He ended up coming in second just because I like that he's quiet and that he kind of just puts his head down and has been training for years and years, and he's been to the games eight times, something like that. But I also picked Sarah Signasdottir, and the reason for that, and it's something that, so you've been doing this Pride in the Process thing where it's like some kind of small workout every day for a while now. But one of the things that that I saw when they did the Road to the Games for her was she kept talking about how much she loves the process and how much she loves the actual training and the everyday going into the gym. And then Ben Bergeron, who she was training with, was saying he's never seen an athlete who's more in love with the process than her. And that kind of made me think she's going to be around for a little while, because it seems like if you're not just thinking about, I say it with my nutrition people all the time, and I'm sure you see it with clients all the time. The other day I was having a conversation that was like, I just want to get a pull-up, and there's so much focus on the destination that people get lost in in actually using the process. So what is, in terms of people approaching their everyday workouts, how do you drill in with them the process, how important the process is, and not going, if you've got a lifter who wants to go for a 1 rep max every day, what's the
I think it's easy to get caught up in that, especially being a newbie, because you get a lot of those the beginner gains, which kind of leads you down that path of focusing on the performance goals. So, in sports psychology, you have your process goals, your performance goals, and your outcome goals. So the outcome goals are the CrossFit Games winner. I want to win the CrossFit Games. Then you work backwards, and okay, I need to get to this point by this time with my numbers, whatever it may be, are your performance goals. And then process goals are the day in, day outs are, I got to hit the gym twice a day. I got to get these workouts in. I got to work on these skills. I got to work on my weaknesses here. As a beginner, it's easy to get caught up in your performance goals. Oh, wow, I hit a pull-up. I hit a heavy clean and jerk. And you get kind of almost like a drug addict. Like you continually want that high you get from that performance that you're doing. And once they make the shift from performance to the process goals, and they start to understand that every day is a win because you're putting the effort in. No matter if it's a great day in training or you at least got the bar of your head, you worked on your weaknesses, skills, whatever it may be, and to appreciate those processes, and like she said, falling in love with them, becoming, okay, this is a part of my routine, this is my day in, day out, because this is who I want to be, right? You look at any great athlete, any great entrepreneur, any great whoever, they have their processes that are just a part of their life. It's not something that, oh, I have to go to the gym. It's interesting. I was talking about this with one of the coaches the other day about how with the kids classes is a really cool thing, because the kids start to make the gym and the process of going to the gym an enjoyable thing, whereas most of us start as, oh, the gym's a pain in the ass, I want to go to the gym, I have to. Kind of like a diet, like, God, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, and you get kind of like, it's for lack of better words, again, it's a process, right? It's a pain in the ass, instead of being like, it's just a part of my process, it's just a part of my life. So yeah, I think the process goal stuff is to focus on that is hard for most, but once you start to measure a little more of the intangible stuff, not the numbers, but the actual, you think about the amount of time you're spending and add that up throughout the year, those process goals become a little bit more lofty and a little more heavy and a little more, wow, I'm pretty happy about that.
What do you think is the major mental barrier that people have when it comes to training, or even, changing their nutrition, or just this whole kind of fitness wellness world? What's a lot that seems to be the major issue?
It's a good question. I think there's a lot of things that contribute to that. There's not just one thing. I think there's a few big ones. I think our society makes it so that it's, you have that little voice of resistance in your head on a regular basis. Like if you're a little bit tweaked, like for instance, my hip has been kind of tight the last couple of days, and that little voice of resistance in the back of my head saying that you should probably take a rest day, you shouldn't do anything, you shouldn't move around, and we've been told that our whole lives. If you're injured, if something's wrong, rest. The whole Rice method, all that shit. Whereas people who get it when they get in the gym or whatever, and they start moving around, it feels better. So kind of going against the grain in that sense is hard to do, because we're not taught that. We're not expressed that it's okay to go into the gym and hit the rower, get on the Airdyne. If you're not feeling great, good, just move around a little bit. You're gonna feel better. We had a group of guys this morning, and they did their first Cindy workout, and this is the beginner group we're running, and they were all really sore. And today we did some pull-ups again, and their workout was Monday. So no, say it's Thursday. The workout was Tuesday. So they only had a couple of days. They had 48 hours, which they say is enough for your body to fully repair and recover itself, but you're still sore. So coming in, I'm sure a lot of those guys are like, great, pull-ups again. And then when they're walking out, how do you feel? I feel much better. So it's that kind of shit. I think is the biggest issue is the environment that we live in, where it should be rest, take it easy. You're doing too much overtraining. We hear a lot.
Yeah. What is because I think you and I have a little bit of a different view of the rest days. So like, what to you, how much rest do you think people need, or is it each person, or kind of how do you see that?
Well, I don't really believe in overtraining, so to speak. I think under recovery is the biggest issue.
Right.
I think people aren't they might train really hard and be really sore, and then think they're overtraining when they're probably not sleeping enough. Their hydration is no good, their nutrition is no good, but they want to automatically look at the one thing that they're kind of, I don't know, they're kind of in control of is the training, but they're not in control of their other stuff. So if you have all those ducks in a row, and then you're still kind of banged up and your nervous system is kind of fried, and it's really hard to say you're overtraining. At the same token, I think, active recovery is huge. I don't think people do enough of that. Go for a fucking walk. Go for a bike ride. You know what I mean? Like, go out and don't just lay in bed all day. Like, you're better off getting up and at least, going for a bike ride is going to make you feel way better than laying in bed all day, no matter how hard you train.
But is there a point where people can start to overdo it and break themselves down where, one day, maybe because they're not taking a day and going for a walk or doing some more active recovery, and they have to get into the gym 2-3 times a day, that they're going to wake up at some point and be like, fuck, I need to take 2 weeks off because I wouldn't just take a day and go for a swim or go for a walk? Or is it just kind of...
Well, I mean, there's a lot of really good resources out there. There's the heart rate variability stuff is really good to really determine whether or not you're fully recovered. I think that gives you a really good indication. I think you're going to see a lot more of that in the near future with CrossFit training.
Well, Matt Chan was wearing a heart rate monitor at regionals.
Who was?
Matt Chan. He had one on at regionals, and he was wearing
Matt Chan. Talking to him personally, we did the CrossFit competitors course, and he talked about his diet, and he's strict zone paleo, and as you know, zone is pretty intense as far as measurements go. It's very precise. So I mean, he's the type of person that can easily. He's all about. He's definitely a geek when it comes to that kind of stuff, and I can totally see him geeking out with the heart rate variability and really getting things precise when it comes to that kind of stuff. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
It seems like I was watching a bunch of the interviews because I watch every stupid YouTube video that HQ puts up, but everybody seems to now be, I think it's interesting because a couple of years ago, it seemed like every high-level CrossFit athlete was just talking about their training, and then it would show them going and eating donuts and pints of ice cream and, Rich Froning with his peanut butter and milk.
Yeah, I think what was the Rich Froning? They went and got they got like I think the first games they were so blown up because they didn't know what to deal with it. They didn't know how to deal with it that they went and got like McDonald's and Burger King and shit like that.
They just got like a ton of shitty food. And it seems like everyone that I've seen interviewed now, when they're asked like, what are you doing with your training, including Matt Fraser, including Sarah Sigmund's daughter, they're all responding with, focusing on recovery and making sure my nutrition is good. So I think what you said about like people who think they're overtraining are actually more likely dehydrated and eating shitty. I think that's probably really on point in terms of, making sure that recovery is good. Ashley Beaver was talking about the same thing last week, but I think we tend to turn to the thing that like, I see it a lot with people who go to CrossFit that are, that I've worked with in terms of nutrition. Like they're at the gym 3 or 4 times a week and they're like, I'm definitely overtraining.
They're definitely full of shit.
I'm like, I think we get a little like, I'm at the gym, but we forget like how much are you actually, working out when you're there? Because maybe you're there for an hour and a half, but how much of that is warm up? How much of that is the strength portion? And how much of that is really an intense Metcon? So we look at all that and we say, I'm overdoing it there. But then we don't consider like, I also went out and got wasted all weekend.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
didn't drink any water today. And I had pizza for dinner last night. So I feel like it's kind of coming back around to like how I'm eating with my hydration. Like I was dehydrated as fuck yesterday. And I thought, it was not a crazy, it was a shitty workout, but I definitely felt the effects of it. For sure. But I think that under recovery is probably the best way to put that. But
like you just said, you talked about how you see the adaptation, the progression in these athletes. When they first started doing CrossFit, they weren't really thinking about that. They were just going hard, and they were trained enough to be able to go hard. And now, but they're still making progress. This is the hardest games to date, and people are still blowing PRs up. They're still doing crazy shit because they're focusing more on that piece and having that be a part of their process as well, right?
Yeah. So what are the just in terms of daily stuff? I mentioned it earlier. You kind of approach because you definitely like, yes, you're the coach you own 2 gyms and you're the coach, but you focus a lot, even like day to day, on the mental side of things. And you have those 4 pillars that you use. So can you just kind of explain your mental game training philosophy that you go by?
All right. Well, I mean, there's a lot. It really depends on the day, I guess, and the person, because it all really does change. But I think as a baseline of it, you have to be able to understand, or at least detach yourself from your own little person inside your head, and kind of look at how you're talking to yourself, what thoughts are going through your head objectively, in a sense of like going through a workout when you have a shitty attitude, like this is going to be bad. It's not going to set you up for a good workout, right? Going into a lift, like I'm probably not going to get this. In the back of your head, not what you're saying, not what you're putting out there, but a lot of times what you're putting out there is exactly what you're thinking. Where you could be saying one thing, but I've seen enough of it. I can look at your face normally and tell, okay, you're full of shit because you don't believe you're going to hit that lift right now, and that comes with experience, and obviously knowing the people that you're training. I wouldn't be able to just to tell from some random athlete looking at them, because I don't know them on a deep enough level. But most of the time, through a class, I'll yell across a room and say to somebody something, and they'll be like, and I'm like, that's what you're thinking, right? And they'll look at me like, yeah, because you can see it on their face. So, what you really believe and what you're saying are two different things. What your internal monologue has to be the same as your external monologue, and I think that's really the basis and the start of it. You have to believe it before you can achieve it.
So, sounds like a R. Kelly
Cliche.
song, isn't it?
No,
I believe
not,
I can fly.
Not funny.
So how much? So this past May, you went out to Salt Lake for nationals for lifting. Well, first of all, when you started everything, I probably know the answer to this, but did you ever kind of think you would be focusing on Olympic lifting and going to a national level? Was that something that you even wanted to do before?
I always can see the potential in other people, and therefore I see that in myself as well. So that it wasn't like out of the cards. It necessarily wasn't my focus. It wasn't like what I want to go to nationals and have an athlete compete in nationals. It's always kind of when you watch those competitions, you always kind of say, in the back of your head, for me, I always say, wow, that'd be cool. I could do that too. You know what I mean? So I never had a doubt that wasn't in the cards to be my focus per se. Not so much. We had a really good coach when we affiliated with 732 back in 2011. Was from Russia. Had a legit background in sport. Was a master of sport in Russia, and he was our Olympic coach. So, the precision of those lifts always intrigued me. The you against yourself is really the only sport there is that's that, like wrestling, that is a strictly single sport. Like, you don't have a team that's really going to affect you so much out on the platform. It's all kind of you and yourself. So, seeing people break down and or excel in that sport always intrigued me. So I always liked it. So I always kind of focused more on it. Plus, being a good lifter within CrossFit means you're going to be pretty good at CrossFit. You know what I mean? You can't not be efficient with those lifts and be a good CrossFitter now, especially now.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of that's a little bit the accuracy and agility, because it's, you need a lot of coordination for the of Oli, do you think is actual? Do you find that most of the breakthroughs that happen are because technique improved, or is a lot of it because something happened, mentally they got over some kind of block?
Well, that's yes, no question. I think it really depends on the person. There's certain people who are at a level with their lifting, and the technique has to get cleaned up in order for them to progress. I don't know what I've been calling it lately, but I'm sure I have multiple names for it. But there's really a technique plateau when it comes to lifting. Like, if you can't get the bar overhead and get into the positions that need to be gotten into, then you're going to plateau and not be able to do the certain lifts efficient enough to really put some big weight up. at the same time, once you have that positional awareness and skill, that comes to a point, with the higher level lifters that we have at the gym, most of the stuff for them is that little magic number in their head that's a huge PR, a huge breakthrough that they don't feel like can be personally broken through until they actually do it. And a lot of times they'll hit plateaus and they'll stay at a certain place for a certain time, and then we got to work on the mental game with that. I mean, it's kind of like the 4-minute mile. I mean, that was one of those things that was said to be an impossible thing to do, and once one guy did it, I mean, it was broken. It was broken left and right. And now, like a really good high school runner can break a 4-minute mile, but years ago it was seen to be impossible. So the perception aspect of those types of performances and those types of PRs usually are a personal one, but then sometimes they become a community type one.
So yeah, well, I mean, we've talked about it before on the show, but like, there's so much counts in CrossFit shitty PRs that go up. I mean, you see it all the fucking time. Like, oh, 5-pound PR looks like shit, but I'll take it.
Right.
And it's like there comes a point where you're never gonna. I mean, you can't go up anymore if you keep just. I mean, I'm like that with power cleans. Like, I don't squat anything because I like power cleans better, and I don't go up very much. But they're with these like back breaking, shitty falling apart cleans and I wonder how much of that is, because you said before something about like the excitement of the newbie or the beginner PR or beginner gains or whatever. How much of that do you think also falls on the coaches to eventually be like, stop putting up shitty lifts and pull the weight back and get your technique down? Like, is there also, as much as there may be ego from the athlete side of wanting to increase numbers, is there also a little bit of ego from the coach's side to want to have your clients, get those PRs and get that first, we see the kipping pull-up is a big debate. Like, do you make people get the strength to do strict? Like, I kind of think people should have to be able to do a strict pull-up before they're doing workouts with kipping, pull-ups with a band for 50 reps.
Yeah.
Like, where does it become? How do you let people have that excitement of achieving something without passing over the foundation?
I think it goes to the old adage of you sell people what they want, and then you give them what they need. So every once in a while you have to let people have a victory with a little bit slipshod stuff. But if that becomes a focus, then both the coach and the athlete are again back to the performance and the process goals. They're too focused on the performance and not the process. Like, we had a meet years and years ago, not a meet, a competition, and I went over to the guy that was doing it for our gym and, listen, man, if you get out there and look like shit, I will fucking come onto the floor, the competition floor, and stop you physically from doing these lifts. Because you look around and everybody looks horrible. And I'd rather my guy not only be safe, number one, but also look like you know what the fuck he's doing.
Yeah.
Because okay, yeah, you had a great time in that WOD, but guess what? Your back's blown out and you can't train tomorrow. Or it's kind of like ripping your hands. Like, don't rip your hands in training. I hate that. If competition's fine. If it happens by accident, cool. If you feel if you feel your hands going within a WOD at your local affiliate, and you got to beat the guy next to you so bad that you rip your hands up and you can't train the whole rest of the week, then you are too focused on a little individual performance and not the overall process. And I think as a good coach, as a good leader, which a good coach is going to be, they got to take responsibilities for their athletes and what's happening to them. And if they don't, then they're not a good leader in my eyes.
So do you think that you have to be a great athlete to be a great coach? And do you think that if you're a great athlete, you are inherently a great coach?
I think you have to be. I think you have to be an athlete to be a great coach, but not a great athlete. I think you have to understand from a first person perspective what they're going through, I think it's much easier to really empathize that way. I think there's probably a lot of great coaches out there who haven't really been in those scenarios or been under a heavy weight and had that doubt. I think they're really few and far between. I think you have to know, okay, I know how I feel when I'm going for a back squat PR and I'm scared that I'm going to fold under this weight. You have to know that, how that feels. I think as a coach, it's always best to be an athlete, a great athlete. I don't think you need to be a great athlete. I think great athletes aren't necessarily good coaches a lot of times. I mean, I remember I forget who was talking about me with the L1 staff when they had Rich Froning on. He couldn't really demonstrate the movements in wrong fashion because he moved so well. So they had a really hard time with him being an L1 instructor because he just moves so well. And I'm kind of the same way. I've learned to move well enough that when I don't move well, it kind of hurts. It doesn't feel right. So it's hard for me to demonstrate what bad movement looks like a lot of times. And I think that becomes an issue with a good athlete becoming a good coach, is being able to understand that, okay, this is how that feels, this is how that looks, and you be able to show them the difference.
Yeah, I think kind of dealing with new people who you're building from the ground up. So for me, when I started, I've been with the gym since before you guys affiliated, and I've kind of been helping, I guess, coach, and I don't coach so much anymore. Mm-hmm. But when we first opened Long Branch, and it was basically you and me running classes. But one of the big things for me that was a big learning experience, and I think now you see it in kind of the newer coaches in trying to teach people is, and I think that people who are athletes who then get into coaching probably have some of the same experiences. I was always dealing with people who learned the same way I learned. So learned from your cues, and I knew that they had a base of, they knew what a clean was. I could help them with the nuances of it. But then my first beginner's class, where it was just me and people who had never fucking done anything and didn't know how to do a squat, I was like, holy shit. Yeah. Me telling these people, load your hamstrings means fuck all to them. They have absolutely no idea. And I think it kind of forces you to get better at teaching it and to get better kind of at the movements yourself, because now you're breaking it down to such a simplistic, basic level. I think training beginners is harder than training people who know what the fuck they're doing.
Well, we said earlier, the athletes are easy. It's the old people, it's people who haven't done anything are hard. If you can explain a concept to an 8-year-old or however that saying goes, and they can understand it, then you have a good grasp of it. So yeah. If you can teach a little kid how to move and express to them in super layman's terms, then you have a good grasp of it. When you have these people who use big words all the time and it goes completely over the heads of the people that they're teaching and coaching, and they don't have a good enough grasp of it, which is not a bad thing, because you're still trying to do the right thing and teach people this stuff. But there needs to be an understanding of that, I think, too, within the community. Just because you have an L1 or have been training people for, even for how long I've been doing it, I still don't feel like I know enough to consider myself an expert when I probably should,
Well, you talk a lot about the novice dilemma, yeah, where you learn a couple of things and then you think you know everything. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like the more that I learn about stuff, like when I was at the NTP, when I was doing my certification, I came in knowing more about nutrition than most people around me. But during that class and then reading stuff after, I realized, like, I don't know fuck all. Right. And I think, like, you're constantly changing your approach to things and learning more things and kind of backtracking and saying, oh, you know what, I learned this. I think that people should give you this is the be all end all. And I think people get really caught up in they say one thing and then they never revert, and they never say maybe there's a better way to do it. And I think as you learn, you kind of almost learn that there's so much more that
Right.
you don't know. But what like for new coaches, what's something that you see a lot that you think could help somebody who maybe just got their L1, has been going to CrossFit, and is now going to start coaching, to make them be a more effective coach for the gym or for their clients or whatever?
All right. Well, I have two quotes come to mind. Number one is by Greg Lassen, which if you are L1 certified and you don't know who he is, you should send that certification back. He said, I don't know what this was referring to, but I think he's talking about movement more so. Don't let my eyes get used to your shitty technique. So I think that's a good one. And then another one is by Vince Lombardi, and I always liked him as a coach. And he says that we're gonna chase perfection only to catch excellence. So I think continually trying to refine movements, to refine the workouts and whatever it may be. Yes, you're never going to achieve that perfect set, that perfect rep. But if you're continually trying to improve that, you're going to catch excellence along the way, which is why certain places do better and their people look better movement-wise. And I think when you see a gym full of people and they move well, compared to other places, as a coach, you should feel proud because you had an impact on that, and that's what you as a coach should be striving for, not to necessarily always make people happy. I think they need to be told the truth. I think as a coach, a good coach, you're going to tell people the truth.
So making people happy and making people better are not.
They're not synonymous. No.
Yeah. All right. So we got a bunch of questions on Instagram. So the first one is from DM Wilson, and there's no profile picture, so I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, but strategies for getting back to CrossFit after surgery. I've been out for a month and itching to get my hands on a barbell.
So I wish I knew what kind of surgery. that would make the answer I'd give a lot better. I think I've certainly had my share of back tweaks and different tweaks and twinges that had put me out for a little bit and have been a problem. And I think just getting the bar in your hands and not looking at where you used to be as far as your all-time bests, and just taking it day by day. Again, we'll go back to that little word, that process stuff is going to be important. Knowing that, okay, you got the bar in your hands and you're moving well and you're moving deliberately is going to be the focus coming back from injury, and that's going to be the most important focus.
Yeah, I mean, my answer and experience with this is that my back's been weird for a while, and it's partially structural, and it's partially because my job changed from being in the car 1 or 2 hours a day to being in the car 7 or 8 hours a day. So it got really funky for a little while, and my physical therapist pretty much told me, like, yeah, you can't do anything that puts impact on your back. So running and double lunges, dropping down from the bar after pull-ups. My hips were really fucked up, so she didn't want me doing anything explosive or even really powerful hinging. So, cleans and snatches and even coming out of a burpee was all like out of the question. And it took longer than I would have wanted. And I think it's hard. You kind of have to swallow your ego when you're coming back.
Yes, I was going to go right there. Good. I'm glad you went there.
Because I was doing burpees, like stepping down, doing a push-up. I was doing.
And let's be honest. Doing burpees that way is fucking harder anyway.
Yeah, it was not fun at all.
Okay.
But it was hard. Like I would have to, I was doing all step-ups for box jumps, and I was doing, if a workout had snatches in it, I was doing like muscle snatches with maybe just the bar, and just changing everything in a way that was safe but kept me moving. And
you were doing what CrossFit preaches to everybody and scaling the movements back.
Yeah,
which is why CrossFit is great in the way they teach it. And I think more coaches would do a better job with their clients if they made them scale and tell them it's okay to scale.
I think that's a big thing, is feeling like it's okay to scale. Like, I mean, there was that one workout that we did a year ago that was ring dips. And at the time I could do a couple ring dips, and it should have been a 15-minute workout, but I wanted to put RX. So it took me a half hour because I was taking forever on the ring dips. And you're like, you should have fucking scaled that and not check, like, just for the sake of checking that little button. And then we kind of lose the integrity of the workout. I don't know, coming back from surgery, I would say, like, take what your surgeon or your physician told you, talk to your coach, and then just scale it as much as you need to for as long as you need to, and not let your desire to get back to exactly what you're doing outweigh the importance of recovering safely and slowly, because then you're just going to fuck yourself even more. Like, my back is better now because I finally took the months that I needed to take to really get better, whereas I used to get a little bit better and then go right back to what I was doing and then just fuck myself up again.
Ego is the enemy.
Do you think that's the enemy a lot of times? Like,
I think it's the enemy 95% of the time, yeah. We all got it. It's all that little person in your head that needs validation. It doesn't really need it.
Yeah. So here's one from, I think her name's Kelsey. Yep. And she said, since your guest focuses on mental stuff, can he explain ways to enhance and strengthen mindset during intense physical exertion, especially for people new to CrossFit? Also, what does mindset look like to each of you within your CrossFit training practices?
So the first part, I think you have to be able to look inside yourself and answer the question, what is going through your head, and understand that. And then a lot of times the mindset stuff is a personal system that you have in place that is going to, put the brakes on certain things or hit the gas pedal on certain things that deep down inside you're either not going hard or you're going too hard. I think at the same time there's another good quote that I always equate to a really good workout is Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And I think everybody's workout needs to go in with a certain plan in place, and that plan needs to be one of intensity so that you get punched in the mouth. And I mean that in a sense of, if you're in a fight and you're fighting and you never get hit, you're not in a fight. Or if you're in a fight too much and you get knocked out, then it's no longer a fight because you got knocked out. I think there's a happy medium between there and a balance that you need to get checked. You need to get hit. Oh shit, that set of 10 thrusters is not happening again. Let me break it down a little bit. I think again, back to the process stuff. Again, it's how do you break down your Fran 21-15-9 that you can do the first 21 unbroken of both of those movements, and in the past you've done that and blowing yourself up to the point where you're not doing 15 in a row and 9 in a row. You're doing 5s. You're doing 3s. You know what I mean? So, okay, I'm going to do 11 and 10 and give myself a little bit of break in order to be able to sprint the finish. I think knowing yourself and how you train and taking, again, stock a little more of that intangible stuff is going to go a long way within the mindset, because you got to have some sort of plan in place. You just go into a workout.
What about someone who's new, who during the workout starts to get to that place of like, I can't do this?
Well, I think
when you have people who say, we have
it all the time. Just do one more rep, and then one more. Again, it's the little tiny. You got to chip away. You have to just move. One rep at a time is going to get you to the finish line. One step, one foot in front of the other is going to get you to finish that run. So the whole I can't thing. If you have enough energy to say I can't, then you're still alive and you're still breathing. So a lot of that is that alarm response where, again, that little voice is saying you're going to die, you can't do this. And that's what I think is the biggest benefit of CrossFit training, is that emotional roller coaster that we all get on. And sometimes it's a scary ride, and sometimes it's one of those ones you're like, fuck, that was it, And when it's like that, fuck, that was it, that means you didn't go hard enough, which is okay. But you need to be able to recognize that too.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why it's so addicting for people, because it's like, I mean, when I was at Globo Gym running on a treadmill for however long, or on the elliptical or whatever, I never finished like, holy crap, I can't believe I actually got through that.
Right.
But I definitely, and I mean, I'm certainly not an expert in mindset and in mental game. It's improved a lot from where I used to be, for sure. A major thing for me being not worrying, and I've talked about it a lot on the show, and I still kind of fall victim to it sometimes, not victim, but is focusing on what other people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh, that was supposed to be a bar over burpee and they stepped over. Why isn't anyone saying anything? Or that was supposed to be a push up and it's not all the way. Like, I get caught up in that stuff sometimes. It used to happen a lot more than it does. But that's kind of like, for me, the mental stuff is checking myself and realizing, okay, I'm focusing on something external, or I tend to spiral where it's
like last night
where it's the air is kind of stagnant. I was dehydrated. I felt like I was overheating.
So how much were you focusing on all those negative things that you are not in control of at all at that point?
A lot.
Okay.
So, a lot. But I would say like 2 or 3 years ago, even maybe 1 year ago, that would turn into a whole...
That would paralyze you.
Yeah, and a whole panic thing. And now it's kind of like I can recognize what it is. It might mean I'm going slower in the workout, but I can kind of acknowledge that, okay, I'm actually fine. I'm not for real going to die. It's just this kind of feels shitty right now, but I'm going to continue doing like 1 rep at a time. Like you said, I think that's really the 1 rep at a time thing. I think no matter what, you can always, even if it takes you forever. And again, that brings us back to the ego thing. Because a lot of times for me, when I feel like that, like the 7s this year, last year I couldn't even finish because my back was in pretty bad shape. I had to stop. This year I was able to finish it. It took me a really long time. And a lot of times I had to do, not because I was in pain, but it just took me a while. And I had to set up for every deadlift pretty tight. But I had to let my ego go of, I said I wanted to finish this in 35 minutes. It's clearly not going to happen, but I just want to finish it. And that is going to be the victory of just getting a little bit done. So I think for new people, remembering that what you're going to finish in 5, 6, 7, 40 minutes is so much more of a, like, it's not just a workout. It's you're breaking through your own kind of self-doubt and telling yourself you can't do it.
So then I have one little trick that I like to use in those long, grueling workouts too, is to again try to detach, right? And I do that personally by kind of laughing at myself and laughing at the scenario, because let's be honest, I mean, that little voice in your head acts like the end of the world is coming, like there's a gun pointed to your head. I mean, like the panic that ensues is completely controllable, and if you just smile and laugh, or you don't have to laugh, just smile, it's going to go a long way. Or look to your right and give somebody who's working on next to you a little smirk with a head nod. I mean, that goes such a long way. I think, back to your beginner thing, I think beginners also should learn the hard way a little bit too. So they appreciate it much more. And then they start to understand why my coach is telling me to do this stuff, because it's going to help. Not because it's just some random little tidbit that sounds kind of cool. Like, okay, now you know how that feels. You can either learn again from my experience, from the class's experience, or you can continually have to learn the hard way.
All right, so the next question is from Lauren Beyonce Knowles down in Florida. She asks, can you talk about what it's like for you and your fiance to work out together, coach together, work together, and how you balance that with the romantic side of your relationship? My first thought was, we don't, but that's probably not totally true. So yes, so Rob is my coach. He owns the gyms that I sometimes coach at, and he is also my significant other, which does pose for some interesting dynamics.
Yeah.
I think we're better at it now.
Way better
than a while.
Listen, everybody who's listening to this, go look at the trailer for Every Second Counts, like the original CrossFit movie. And rule number 1 in CrossFit was, like, don't coach your girlfriend. And I broke that rule since day one.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so I was thinking about this last night, and I think, I think in the end it kind of okay, so I think a lot of things. I think it comes down to respect really on both sides. I don't know what position you guys are in, but if I'm in class as a, member of class, it comes down to me kind of a lot of times just respecting that Rob is the coach and I'm there as a client, which I'm not always great at. Sometimes I, will come in late or talk back when I shouldn't. So I think that that's a big thing, is like respecting the roles. But I also think I do think from the other side, there is a level of being, just because you guys are aware of your own relationships dynamics, and you're there as a client coach, or you're there as, two coaches or whatever. I think the person in the, quote, power position also needs to kind of be a little bit more aware of their interaction with the person. Because just because you guys, know your interactions, like there would be time, I was very aware of how other people were seeing our interactions in classes and stuff. And even though maybe you would talk to me in the same way that you were coaching all your other clients, because you're not exactly a soft, fluffy kind of coach, they were seeing it as, this is how he's talking to his girlfriend, not this is how he's talking to another client. So I think on both ends, you kind of have to be a little bit more aware. And the same way from my end is like, they're seeing, oh, she's talking to him, and like as a coach and as her fiance, boyfriend,
or like, just on an easy level, like your friend. Like we're not fucking friends right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you and I may have had a beer last weekend together, and as a coach, whatever, as a friends, but for this hour, for this training session, we're not friends.
Don't talk to me. Well, yeah, and I think a big thing for me, and it festered for a really long time, to be honest, was because I was the coach's and the owner's girlfriend, I felt like I needed to win every single workout and lift all of the heaviest weights, and I needed to be the best in class because of that. And I put kind of that expectation on myself, assuming that was your expectation of me, assuming that was everybody else in class's expectation of me. And then that made CrossFit not fun. It made going to class not fun. It made me look at if everybody else was cheating and make me really pissed off and frustrated when I couldn't do it. And
see, even that, everyone else is cheating. I think one thing you and I have had qualms with before is the assumption of cheating.
Right.
When, I say to people all the time when I'll have an issue with, and not you particularly, but an issue with somebody saying something about somebody else's reps, and I'm like, listen, I can only make them a better person at moving and training, but if they're blatantly cheating on purpose, I can't make you a better person. I can only call you out and hope that you change it, and if it's done on purpose, then that shit's on them.
Yeah. But what I'm getting to is that I then, I realize now that my position as the kind of pseudo second in command, I guess, at the gym is more my attitude and the way that I behave and the way that I carry myself. So like in a workout like yesterday, I'm now not thinking, I'm a failure if I don't do well. I'm now thinking I need to be a good example, and I need to finish this workout with some kind of like I need to not quit. That's my job, is to
which is spot on, 100% correct. I think that applies also to any kind of veteran in the gym, or somebody that's looked at upon as somebody who is good at CrossFit or has been doing it a long time. If you hold your head high and grind out the rest of a workout, as a veteran, as somebody who's been doing it long enough, and the people who are new look at that, you're going to have way more influence than you can imagine on them.
Yeah. Well, I think that, like, I honestly, I think that working out together, like training together and both being a part of kind of building this community, I think can be really beneficial. And I think it can kind of be something that, if you're both invested in it and you both want to see it grow and succeed, I think that can be something that adds to your relationship, not something that necessarily needs to be overcome by it. But
Right.
but one
Totally.
thing I will say that I think another thing that I think we're better at now is just in terms of a couple, Lauren, is if you guys are spending, I mean, there's so much time spent in the gym, and there's so much time spent with clients, and a lot of times you go out and you say, oh, let's call, so and so from the gym and have them come. I think it's really important to also go out and take time to like be by yourselves and maybe not talk about the gym and maybe not invite clients from the gym, because it can start to feel like your whole life is, as much as you may love your clients and the people who go, like you need some time away from them sometimes. Otherwise it feels like, your whole life has been taken over by that. And then there's no time like to actually catch up with the other person about things not involving what's going on at the gym or not involving clients. I don't know what's your issue with, let's have some on air.
I agree. I think it's good to have time apart. I think it's good to have time apart from the gym, from your clients, from your significant other as well.
Yeah.
I think I mean living with somebody or whatever, and you need to have a week, like you were away the last weekend or there. So being able to have friends outside and girls' night and guys' night and just kind of getting away from that too is important.
Yeah. All right, so the 3Rep Max wants to know, since your guest is an affiliate owner, you would be interested in any tips or tricks they might have to increase retention and keep it fresh for members, especially in a saturated market.
It's not how much you know, it's how much you care. I mean, the saturated market thing is I said it before, it's a cop out. I think your members. I think Ben Bergeron just put. I just shared a picture by Ben Bergeron to all our coaches. The people who are in your gym and already paying you are your primary focus. They need to be. You need to know them. You need to know their kids. What they do for a living. You need to know that kind of stuff. If you don't, you're not doing a good job as a retentive business owner. Once you get to know them on that level, then they're not going to care about the amount of money they're spending with you or whatever, and they're going to continue to the impact you make in their life is essentially like a free advertising, and that's something that is easy to get away from because we're always trying to get better, like our Fran times. We're always trying to get better, so we want to have more people in the gym. When we forget to look at the people who are already believe in us to the point where they're spending their money there. So there's a big opportunity, and I think retention is not looked at enough. I mean I look at our email list, and our lead list is huge, and here I am. My first thought is, it's just a natural thought, is to go out and put an ad up, put some new program up, whatever. I have a list of people that I've coached in the past or are currently coaching that are already like, you look at it from a business perspective, they're already like class 1, class A prospects. They've already spent money with you. Those are the people that are going to believe in you enough and have already made a purchase. That's why you go to any store, they ask for your email address. They ask for your phone number because they know you've already spent money in the store, therefore you're much more apt to coming back. So instead of winning new people, continue to win the people that you've already that are winning. Like, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think making sure that everybody feels like they're not a number. I think having, making sure that during every class you're interacting with every single person.
Mm-hmm.
The major thing I think with CrossFit, aside from the methodology as to why it's so successful, is because it is community based. Like if somebody doesn't show up for a couple weeks, is a coach reaching out to them and seeing what's going on. If someone
even better than, and that's true. Something I'm not great at. I wish I was better at. I'm working on that because I need to develop my own system and how that works, which I started to do with the attendance board that we have. But even more so than that is the more strong the community is. You have your own clients doing that for you. Like,
Right.
where the hell was Kristen? I haven't seen her. I haven't seen her in a few days. And you have a person that you're now friends with, and then a part of the community saying, writing on your Facebook wall, "Where you been? I miss you." You know what I mean? Like, that's what continues the machine moving.
Yeah.
Is all the
So,
little cogs are oiled up and moving the right way. It's your job to keep oiling the cogs.
all right. So, in Health Haley said, I'm an NTP and want to transition my scope of practice to dealing more with athletes. I know you do your primal precision group. So do you have any resources you recommend for learning more about sports nutrition from a real food science backed perspective? I mean, my first thought when I see this is, are or were you an athlete? Like, why do you want to work with athletes? Is it because you see that as a big market opportunity, or is it because it's something that you're really passionate about? So I do this primal precision group with athletes because that's who I am.
You do it with yourself.
I do it with myself. So
Right.
I learned a lot in my own experiences. I know pretty much every time somebody in that group has an issue with something, I've experienced it, so I can help them from a firsthand perspective. Something that you said earlier with a great coach doesn't have to be a great athlete, but they have to be an athlete.
Right.
You know,
or had been an athlete
right.
at some point.
Like, because the thing is, so for an NTP, we really focus on overall health and general wellness, whereas with an athlete, you're dealing with something more goal oriented. You're dealing with a different set of requirements in terms of nutrition and what they need. So, I mean, my first question would be, why do you want to do that? Are you an athlete? And then yeah, I mean, in terms of resources,
Experiment with yourself.
Yeah, I think you're your best resource. Yeah. I mean, Rob Wolf has a lot of stuff about athletes. Mike T. Nelson is super sciencey and has a ton of stuff about athletes. But athletes aren't really a huge mystery. Like, if Steph Gaudreau at Stupid Easy Paleo has a bunch of stuff, but I would say just keep digging around those people in the fitness sphere. Like I said, Rob Wolf, Mike T. Nelson, Steph Gaudreau, and kind of see what they're doing. But there's not going to be, even with athletes, there's not one answer for everybody. There's not a blanket, like, this is going to work for.
Wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah, it'd make it a lot easier. But I think you say all the time, like, do you have skin in the game? What is it that makes you want to do that? Is it because you see an opportunity, or is it because it's something that you really, that you really care about and you want to work with? All right. So
it's like opening up an ice cream shop and you hate ice cream. How the fuck's that work? Your ice cream's going to suck, or else you're not going to like serving it.
Well, yeah, that is like, if you're dealing with athletes and you're not kind of doing that yourself, like, are you going to care about, an
athlete's problems? Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going to care about their problems? Okay. So here's another one from Honeychild67. What are your views on the 5-2 diet for a CrossFitter who goes 5 times a week with no health issues? So I had no idea what this is. Have you ever heard of it?
The 5-2 diet?
Yeah.
Was that 5 days clean, 2 days shit?
No, other. It's 2 days of low calorie fasting. So for guys, 600 calories, for women, 5, and then 5 days of do whatever the fuck you want.
What's the point? What's the goal?
To lose weight, I think.
I think intermittent fasting is a good thing. I think if it's done properly, I think you have to be very regimented. I mean, I don't know, but the whole 600 calories thing is not even really. It doesn't mean play into it. I mean, it depends on when you're training. You're having one of those low calorie days. The day after a hard training session is not going to be. It's gonna be a shitty day. It's gonna suck, But I mean, you know what? All that shit. Fucking try it out. Try it and see if you can if it works for you and is it something that you can sustain as a lifestyle. I think the biggest issue with diets is that capital D.
Totally.
Like, I do this now because it works for me and I really like it. Awesome.
Yeah, we got a similar question from Whitney, who said like losing fat with intermittent fasting, like macro timing or affected methods that limit. So with this 5-2 thing, my first thought when I see something like this, because it's like, it said unrestricted eating 5 days a week and then 2 days.
That for me is a bad. That's no good.
I agree.
I will go fucking bonkers.
Yeah. But I think that's the problem in my eyes with things like this, where it kind of tries to give you a magic bullet, like, oh, just starve yourself 2 days a week, do whatever the fuck you want every other day, because then you're never changing your actual habits, you're never changing your lifestyle, and that's not a sustainable way to live. And I mean,
unless you're I think that diet, those types of things are really meant for a certain type of person. You know, a certain type of person who's not the kind of person that can sit there and eat a pint of Ben and Jerry's, no problem. Like that kind of diet is not for you. Yeah, that something like that is not for you, because you can sit there and eat a pint of Ben and Jerry's and then be like, you know what, fucking today is my day. I can have whatever I want. I'm going for 2.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like me, I couldn't do that type of thing, because I know that those unrestricted days would be a free for all. Now, if you're the kind of person who doesn't really have an issue with overeating or enjoy eating that much, you just kind of do it, and that kind of gives you, it kind of forces you to kind of be a little bit more, it's a little less restrictive, then that might work for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really a huge fan. I mean, for women specifically of intermittent fasting, I haven't really seen a ton of information out there that shows that it has a lot of benefits for women. Some of that's now coming back, and people are saying there's no difference. But we had kind of a cool conversation with Mike T. Nelson, who is like a biology, training, nutrition, super geek, and talking about this. And what he kind of said was like, for extremely healthy women, intermittent fasting is probably fine and has some benefits, but 90% of women today are already overly stressed and are already under recovered and are already probably coming out of super low fat or super low calorie diet habits. So it ends up not being a great idea.
Yeah. I think a lot of the issues and a lot of the logic that comes into the fasting argument, they're very logical standpoints where, back 150 years ago, there's no fucking food, you weren't eating, so you were forced to do that. But I think the stresses and all the other kinds of things of modern day life that, people weren't outside as much, or they're outside much more back then than they are now. And there's all these different things that your lifestyle kind of was a little less stressful, and it shouldn't have been. But in those times, I think when you make the logical argument of, well, my ancestors didn't eat a ton of food in the wintertime because there wasn't much food to eat. And so intermittent fasting was okay, and the body can adapt to that. But I think because you live in a time of abundance, and because you want to train to be a certain way, that you can't necessarily live a lifestyle of, famine or feast. Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like people, like, we just want like you said, that capital D diet. We want rules so badly. And we want, you can have this, you can't have that. We want the magic diet that's going to fix all of our problems in like 2 days.
That's because people spend too much time watching infomercials late at night.
There's got to be a better way. But and it's interesting because one of the things that I see in the Primal Precision group is I'll get emails that are like, oh, this bacon or whatever says that it has 2% sugar. Can I eat it? And I'm like, yeah, like, sure, but we're so used to that like giant list of a litany of things that you can't have that we don't know what to do when we don't have it. But then that turns into like, you're constantly dieting, you're forever dieting. And I think sometimes paleo creates that mentality where it's, I'm super paleo right now, and then I'm going to go, and then you're just creating that same problem, as opposed to trying to find a way that's sustainable long term, which is
why I really like the title of Rob Wolf's original book, The Paleo Solution, right?
Yeah. Like,
it's not a diet; it's a solution to a problem. Like, and that's it. If it works for you, if the 1 + 1 is 2 for you, then have at it.
And then let's see. So we've got one more question, but I feel like we kind of already answered it. Keeping in mind the mindset theme, thoughts how to work through any tentativeness on returning to workout after an injury, such as how you
Movement is
approach a move.
medicine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Just get going. Oh, there is one more actually. Okay, so question. This is from another Haley. What are your thoughts about primal health coach certifications that are out there? For example, the one offered by Mark Sisson, and I think Rob Wolf has a similar one.
So before you answer this, I think you have a better insight than I do on those in particular. I'm going to answer from a more objective standpoint. Mm-hmm. I think if you read those people's material and you like the message that they're putting out there, then they're going to be good certifications. I think the biggest issue with any certifications is the dogma that may come along with it, and that goes for CrossFit too. Jesus Christ himself, Muhammad, whatever you believe in, didn't come down out of the clouds and say, this is the gospel. I think that's the biggest issue I see with any certification. So as long as they're not like, this is the end-all, be-all, or you like the message and who it's coming from, I think they're probably going to be pretty good. And then you talk to it.
No, I agree. I think I think it's easy to take a certification and think that's it, and that's the only thing there is out there. I did the Czech Holistic Lifestyle Cert, and I really liked the material, but I was really put off by my instructor who, everybody who was there was coming kind of from different backgrounds. There were people coming from bodybuilding. There were people coming from personal training. There were people coming from, an undergrad in nutrition or whatever. And someone said something about CrossFit, and she said, CrossFit, CrossFit's out there and it's killing people. And I was just kind of like, you clearly don't know what you're talking about. And just because, and someone asked something about paleo, and she's like, oh, well, paleo is a raw food diet. It's really extreme. It's like raw meat and stuff. So she obviously hadn't even looked into anything, but just this blanket, disregard and dismissiveness and she had shit to say about everybody else. Somebody brought up politics. Thing check was the be all end all, and there couldn't possibly be another way. That is something that people could use to, for their life, because what works for me isn't going to work. What's sustainable and works for me isn't necessarily what's sustainable and works for you, isn't necessarily what's sustainable and works for everybody else.
There's more than one way to skin the cat.
Yeah. And hearing that, yeah, totally. And I think hearing someone tell you there's only one way to skin a cat makes me question that person's, first of all, how much that person knows.
Novice.
Yeah. Cause I think it's that if you can't explain something simply, you don't know enough about it. Like when you hear people start to use 45 syllable words and explain things in a way that you can't even understand.
Well, listen, the moment somebody starts bashing something else, they're already in the wrong. So for anybody who knows anything about anything, as soon as somebody starts bashing something that someone else is doing, Zumba, if it gets you up and moving and dancing, great. I don't particularly think it's good for me. But I'm not saying it's not good for you. You know what I mean? Go do hot yoga. Cool. If you're into that shit, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think if you believe in what whoever's certification is, and you want to learn more, I think it's probably worth it. But I think approach it as an experience. Don't necessarily if you go get a primal health coach certification, don't think that that's immediately going to give you credibility, because most people don't know what the fuck that is.
Or you know what? I tell a lot of coaches too, before you decide to go do a certification, go read all the material that's out there for free about it.
Right.
You can learn just as much as you can to cert about the free shit that's out there, and then you really like it enough to go pay the money for the certification, do it.
Yeah, because it is. None of these are cheap. I don't think they're all. But it's learning.
No, and it shouldn't be, because college isn't cheap, and that was a waste of fucking money.
I know, serious. I seriously, I think that you should be able to like go out after high school and like live your life for a few years and figure out what the fuck you like to do. Because I minored in fashion merchandising. That is nothing the fuck to do.
And you have no fashion sense.
My entire fat wardrobe is Reebok shorts and Lululemon sports bras, and that's about the extent of my. I mean, what did you do? Environmental something? And
environmental policies, institutions, and behavior. And then, but I minored in psychology, so it helps out a lot.
So that actually does help. So that, I mean, we're pretty much probably over on time. I feel like I can put this into 2 episodes. But okay, no, because I'm not done yet. There was a conversation that we were having on the way to Paleo FX that I was mad that I didn't take my computer out and start recording because I thought your perspective on it to me was really interesting. We were talking about Rich Froning, and why is it that he's so far above people, or why is it that these high level athletes, because they're untouchable now. Like really the everyday person, 99% of the people in CrossFit gyms can't now be like, I want to go to the games and do it. And I was saying that I think that while there is a work ethic, I think there's a level of, these people are naturally talented at this kind of fitness. And that's why they excelled and continue doing it, because they found something that they were good at. So they kept pushing. And you did not agree with that assessment.
Well, I think the only thing natural when it comes to these high-level athletes within CrossFit is their size. You have guys who are the Rich Froning or the Matt Frazier size people. Was he 5'9", $190?
I think they're all 5'10", 195, or at least.
Yeah, so they're all relatively. They're not tall, they're not short, they're not huge, they're not small. I think the only thing.
Like the Dr. Seuss of CrossFit.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think the way CrossFit's set up, and it's great the way it's set up. It's not, as Coach Glass would say, an egalitarian situation anymore. Yes, there's the only talent I see is the ability to drive and work hard and be passionate and love the process, but I don't think it's a talent. I think that's a developed trait. I don't think Rich Froning came out of the womb and was able to be a fucking maniac and just go and go and go and go. I think there's a switch that you can develop when you decide that you want to be at that level. I think it takes a long time now. I think there's no way that the average person can just go to regionals. But talent, I think, is a cop-out, and it really doesn't do the people who are at a high level, that word doesn't do them justice, because they don't see all the 10 workouts a day that Rich Froning does. That's not talent. You don't have talent doing 10 workouts a day. You develop that base, and that volume is a developed thing. No one that's a regular CrossFitter can go do 10 watts a day and be able to sustain that. That's a linear kind of curve where it ramps up over time, and your body can handle that. Like any good Russian program as far as weightlifting goes, the program is based on volume and then the amount of lifts, and that's where they develop into a higher level athlete when they increase that volume over time, and that's not something you can do overnight. You look at a guy like LeBron James. He's talented because everybody wants to look at him like he's untouchable as far as I couldn't do that in a million years. Well, if you put the time and effort in as a little kid playing basketball on the court by himself at night, maybe you could have been able to.
So saying somebody is just naturally talented takes away your role.
Yeah, totally.
In your development, like, oh right. No, they're just better.
It's like no, like they're just working harder than you. They have worked harder than you, and so all that stuff compounded. Say 10 years, you did 2 sessions a week, and Rich Froning did fucking 5. How much further ahead is he than you? Right? That's not a talent thing. That's purely fucking effort and work.
Yeah. Well, that's like when I've had family or friends or whatever say to me like, "Oh, you're so lucky that you're in shape." And
right?
It's like,
is it luck?
It's not. Or
thanks. Yeah. No, it's not luck. You worked hard for it. Like people don't deserve to be in good shape. You don't deserve a 500-pound back squat unless you put the fucking work in. That's what's nice about training and being healthy and eating a certain way is people get these physiques, these output capacities because of the work they put in. It's not a magic pill you can take. Sorry, ain't happening. And if you believe it is, you got the wrong fucking. You're in my gym. You're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Like you're not gonna be where Katie, Dennis, you, whoever, because just by walking through the door, like the one kid we had who was the young kid who wanted to go to the regionals, then he did his first fucking CrossFit workout and was dying. Like, yeah, dude, it's fucking hard. Just because you go hard in a gym and can bend off a row 225 easily doesn't mean you have put in the kind of work to be able to get to the high level that these people are at.
Yeah. So what, I mean, now we are definitely at time now, but what, say 3 things that people need to do either at any aspect to be better at everything.
Number one is have a priority set, and where an individual aspect of your life you want to improve upon, where does that fall on your priority list? And it needs to be a part of your life on a regular basis. There's certain things that, you know, as an athlete, people want to train and get better at. Well, you want to have a 500-pound back squat. You can't squat twice a week and get that. It'll take a long time, but if you really want it, you got to work hard for it. Most people aren't going to squat 500, right? But if they're at the gym every day, building up their capacity, building up their legs or whatever, then you'll have that. But that has to be a process, a continuing thing. To get better at anything, it has to be done frequently.
The what you want and what your goal is has to match what your priorities and what your actions are. Because I think a lot of times people are like, I want to lose 50 pounds. I want to
lose 50 pounds, but I want to go out and party every weekend with my friends. It's not happening.
And I only want a week.
Right.
What's the second thing that people? What's one thing people can do to improve their mind, their mental game?
One easy thing to implement is not to take your life so seriously. Like, whatever's going through your head as far as it being the end all be all and life's coming to an end, is to step outside for a second, perspectivize. That's my word I made up. I hope you guys like it. Again, step out of your own fucking lens. Step away from your own lens. We all see the world through our own color lens. If you can step outside of that a second, look from the outside looking in, and really take stock of the scenario and how it's unfolding, that change in perspective is huge. So if I'm looking at, I'll give you a little visual to kind of understand that. If I'm laying down in a foxhole and in a civil war, you know those old like wooden fences, and I'm laying down and they're shooting back and forth, and I see the battle from a first person perspective, and the general on the top of the fucking hill makes a call to have people do this, and I'm questioning that call. It doesn't bode well, because I only see it from my little one-sided 180-degree view, where she's seeing the whole battlefield. You know what I mean? Like, if you can step outside yourself, become a general in your life, and look at the whole battlefield, you're going to make a better decision based upon that perspective.
And lastly, what's one thing that people can do to improve to get their training?
Their what training? I'm sorry?
I said, what's one thing people can do to improve or get more out of their training?
Go into it with a purpose. Don't just walk in the gym like, oh, I'm gonna go train today. Like, we're doing X, Y, Z. When you see the workout on the board, when you see it on Modify, when you see it wherever, like, go in with an idea of what you're trying to get out of it for the day. You know, what your intangible goal is for the day, not the actual lift. Like, what other things can you focus on to make that a better training session? And again, sessions, just one little session at a time.
All right. So I'm fairly certain that this is going to take up 2 weeks worth of episodes. which I kind of anticipated, because there are a lot of times that we'll start having conversation about training or mindset or anything like that, and I'm like, oh fuck, I should have just started recording this for an eventual show, but I'm going to end it now. So why don't you let people know where they can find you, kind of what you got going on, and if they want to, learn more about coaching and the mindset side of things, kind of how they can reach out.
Well, I got a couple resources that I try to keep updated with information. My Instagram, MTFU Mindset. If you guys don't know MTFU, it's kind of my motto we've been using for a long time at the gym, and I've kind of adopted it in my own lifestyle, man the fuck up. So MTFU Mindset Instagram. I put a bunch of workouts up there. I put some different stuff on there. I do have a online coaching group that deals with what I call the 4 pillars of purpose, and just basically a physical, mental, spiritual, and one like kind of a personal pillar that I kind of challenge people to spend a little time with each day and kind of build a little bit of purpose in their lives and make it more of a personal system. So we talked about what somebody can do, and when they set their own system in place and what works for them, I think I've seen a lot of good things happen with some of my online coaching groups. And then if you guys want to check out and there's a group on Facebook where I put a bunch of stuff too, where it's just free to get into. No big deal. MTFU Mindset on there too.
All right, cool. So that's that. You guys can find me at The Girl with the Butter on Instagram and thegirlwiththebutter.com, as you know. If you have, I'm not sure who I'm going to have on next week. Not next week, or sometime while Everett's gone. I'm hoping that it's going to be, I'm trying to get Scott McGee on. He's got a really interesting perspective, again, with kind of, the mindset stuff and training with purpose. And he's got a new project that he's got coming out. He's from the Wadcast podcast. So I'm hoping to get him in the next couple of weeks. But if you guys have any ideas of who you want on the show while Everett's on vacation, when I need co-hosts, go ahead and let me know. And you can email the paleo podcast at gmail.com. And that's it. Thanks for listening. Head to iTunes, leave us a review and a rating, and that would be pretty sick. And we will see you guys next Thursday. Rob, thanks for jumping on and giving me some sweet. You're anything.
Yeah, totally. And then I also have a little podcast I've been working on. I forgot about that one, right? Just the MTFU podcast. I mean, I put some stuff on there, little tidbits. It's not as in depth as yours, but just some little tidbits here and there. So check that out too, guys.
All right, cool. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks, Rob, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.